Oh, I gotta get rid of this. Hey everybody, how's it going? Um,
Hi, everybody.
hey Rev, Second Star, everybody out there. Welcome. Um, we're here for this awesome interview with Dave. Uh, so Dave, what's going on, man? How's you been?
I just want to say thank you for such an absolutely wonderful introduction there, Eli.
You're
That was
welcome.
absolutely. I'm almost blushing underneath the purple mask.
Oh shit!
I'm almost. Things are going. They're going good. I've got no complaints. I'm a
Hey
happy
Greg,
bunny at the present. Yeah.
that's cool, man. Let's see. Um,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I just want to say thank you all for coming. You know, we can start this interview. You know, so so Dave, can you tell us a little bit about your channel?
Well, yeah. I mean, the channel really is just about a little bit for fun more than anything else, really, for fun and showing a couple of experiments that I like to do and get people chatting about the paranormal. Is it a channel for me to show my paranormal exploits? The answer to that is no, not really. It's not really there for that. It's there for fun and for the spread of knowledge and to sort of like, yes, I don't want to be come across as being facetious, but spreading the word, I don't know about that, but having fun and interacting with the people that join me, listening to their point of views, what they've got to say, their experiences, and to bounce off that and have a good ride along the way,
It's always good to share your experiences and especially your personal experiences and the stuff you catch on your investigations and stuff like that. And um, it even intrigues a lot of people to actually think what's out there. Like what did we just see in that camera? Um, what did we just like? I mean, it's always a question. It's always just some questions that we can't understand. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the driving force for many people, isn't it? The fact that it's difficult for people to understand.
Sorry, bro.
No, it's okay. As soon as you are, I've
Yeah,
sort of
man.
expected that. It drives the need for knowledge and the desire for knowledge drives people's um, reason in many cases for doing it. For me, I think a lot of other people too already have got a predetermined ideology about what's happening, and because of that, they either do it to validate what they already know. I sort of do it because I want to, not because I want to prove it, but because I just want to experience more. If that makes any sense, when I do
Yeah.
investigations and see things, experience things on a personal level.
Yeah. Um. Well, I know that you got to always also have you got to be professional in the paranormal field. You can't just
Mhm.
you can't just go just pick up a camera and be like you got to explain it. You got to like explain about the technology you use when you capture a spirit. You know, and like your personal experiences. I mean, if like let's say you have a personal experience. You want to verify that to use to talk to the spirits to verify it on camera. Because a lot of paranormal um investigators do that so they can have proof.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like in warfare. It's I know it sounds like a little bit of a strange analogy, but it's like say like the best laid plans of mice and men aft gan agley. You can plan and be prepared as much as you want, but that'll go out the window. It's the same in warfare. You can plan for things, but as soon as you make contact or get into battle, things go out the window.
Yeah.
In the paranormal field, it's the same thing. You can gather what you consider to be evidence, and as soon as it hits the stage of analysis, it can fall down and everything goes out the window. So you do have to understand the equipment that you use, because it will not only will it validate a very real experience that you might have, and corroborate the experience that you had by doing so, but it will also rule out all the other prosaic normal reasons why people might be experiencing certain kinds of phenomena.
Yeah.
So
Well, with that, like, I mean, like, because it's good that we use technology to prove, But what would happen if the technology fails us? Like, okay, resistance existed. First, just like you think about it, like you have a lens on your camera, right? Let's say
Yeah,
if it malfunctions, and let's say the liquid or whatever comes out onto it, or a burnt mark, and that could
yeah,
look like a spirit. You're gonna have
yeah,
to go
absolutely.
back into it. It's kind of hold on, sorry. It's kind of hard to go back onto that video when it's messed up. But once you take a picture and put it up, then people are gonna be like, "Hey, that's a spirit," but it's not. It's just a burnt image, or it's just because back then they only used Polaroids, and for a negative like that, you're gonna have to explain it to everybody. Say, hey, that's not right, because it kind of got burnt. You know what I mean? Like the picture and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Even
absolutely.
the technology, these days.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 100% technology can fail, and in most cases, it's probably more fallible than a human being is on an
Yes.
investigation or on an adventure or during an experience. It's just as likely to fail as anything else, and that is it. I mean, so I think many people will gather even more pieces of equipment just in case this fails, and that leads to, well, I want an extra piece of equipment for this room and for that room, and you end up with so much tech. You end up with so many cameras because you want to validate, like you said, all you need is a lens to go down or for the sensor on a camera to go down. So you get all this tech, and I'm massively guilty of this. I'm hugely guilty of all this technology. I've got the house is full of it, and the storeroom's full of it, and it's ridiculous because it sort of, in a way, pulls people away from the personal experience. They
Mm,
rely upon the technology, and I'm just as guilty of this as anybody else. But they rely upon the technology, and it pulls them away from the personal experience, whether that be spiritual or physical. They're less
yeah.
prone to picking up on that because they're too busy watching flashing lights or
Mm.
listening to this device, that device, and the other. So what you say is absolutely correct. Yeah, and equipment can fail, and inevitably will.
Yeah. Well, it's just like when there's a difference between the paranormal investigator and a thrill seeker. They go in the
Oh yeah.
building, they don't check their some. I'm just saying, some are they don't check their equipment before they go in to an
Mm.
investigation. Like, can you tell me a little bit how you start your investigations before you enter a property?
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the first things we do, because I feel this is important, is we'll conduct a telephone interview in most cases,
Hmm.
and there'll be a set series or a set of questions that will sort of predetermine the order in which we will do an investigation in.
Hmm.
So, say for instance, you have this is, I'm just broadly speaking here, of course, but if you've got a single man who lives in a single bedroom flat and
Hmm.
he's experienced he's a few knocks and banks and bumps and things like that, sees things out of the corner of his eye, and then you have a single mother who's trying to bring up three children, and the kids are being kept awake at night because they're seeing things or being pulled out of the bed, and objects are moving in the kitchen, cabinet doors are opening and shutting, that kind of thing. Then that is going to be a more important, if you like, that's going to take priority over the investigation of the single man at the flat, because there's a young family involved and they're being traumatized by the events. So there's like a triage system, if you like, in a way,
Hmm.
which will be conducted on the telephone. And then there will be a preliminary investigation. The first investigation that we do there will be to take baseline readings of where all the electric, the ring circuit for the mains is in the house,
Hmm.
where all the power outlets are,
Yeah.
any EMF radiation signals that we might be getting from man-made devices like TVs and computers and stuff like that. We
Yeah.
will check for the humidity. We will also check, temperature deviations. We will check for level surfaces to see if that can be the reason why doors might be opening under gravity, and if things shrink and things expand due to temperature deviations and so on and so forth. So we'll do a baseline test when we first go to a location before anything else, and also at that we will again ask another series of questions to find out information regarding the type of experiences that they're having.
Um.
You know,
Well, it's like and they could don't like I know in your investigations, like when you start, does the owner shut off all the electricity just to prove that there's paranormal activity, or they leave it on? Because I know you guys gotta set up a nerve standard and stuff like that.
yeah,
How does that work?
Yeah, we call it a hub, but yeah, it's the same kind of thing. Yeah, your nerve center. Yeah, absolutely. We'll have monitors and where most of the CCTV goes. We also use remote microphones, so we'll have a 24-bit DAC 96 kilohertz audio system to get the best quality audio that we can, and condenser microphones that use they're massively sensitive, so we can pick up. They're omnidirectional as well, so we can pick up from all corners of the house. But when it comes to turning off the power, also the heating as well, sometimes we usually like to take control of that. I know that the word control might be a little bit misleading, but absolutely, it's always a good idea to do that. And also be aware of power outages. We'll also look into the national grid for that local area to see if there's been the council have been aware of power outages, whether there've been any shorts, whether it's known for ground frequency vibrations due to the location of motorways and stuff. But usually that kind of side of it, we'll take on board rather than the actual resident or rather than the client. But turning off the electric is always a really good idea. However, sometimes there's residual current, obviously, even underground in the mains pipes that come in. So you still get magnetic readings due to inductance. So you have to be mindful of that. So even doing a baseline sweep, we will do a volts per meter, and we will do an electric radiation test, a magnetic radiation test, and then sum of the two values as well to make sure that we're fully aware of any kind of fluctuations that we might get in the baseline test EMF readings.
Is it always good to make sure the equipment's working before the investigation?
Yeah, absolutely. And the amount of batteries, and charging batteries and everything. Yeah, you see, if you need to sort of calibrate the equipment, and you need a given percentage or a given percentile of what a reading needs to be to calibrate your equipment when you do an investigation. So you say, for instance, a lot of people like certain meters. I don't want to be bashing upon particular parts of tech, but some people might like a particular meter and not really understand the frequency range at which it works, and any kind of way of seeing if it's working correctly. But so all you can really do is measure it against itself. So having multiples of one particular piece of equipment, let's say, for instance, an EMF meter, if you use that EMF meter to regulate, like I know that my kettle is 2000 kilowatts, and when I'm 1 foot away from it will give me a 10 milligauss reading on an EMF meter. So if I get all the other EMF meters, I will stand the same distance away and expect to get between 10 to 12.5 milligauss on them meters to know that they're roughly all within the same kind of range. So you're sort of like tuning them to themselves rather than to an actual scientific value. And it does just give you an arbitrary reading. But when you go to a location and you take a reading and that baseline reading is 0, if it's anything above 0 during the investigation, then you've had a fluctuation and it's worth paying attention to. So even if it's not 100% scientifically viable, the fact that you've tuned it to itself, the fact that you have calibrated it to itself within its own environment relative to its 0 reading, if you get a hit, you know that something's changed.
Even though if it's poltergeist activity, let's say when it comes down to like the children, like young children and the adolescents and stuff like that, how does the poltergeist? I mean, I know we're going into a whole different field when we're talking about, but how does that work the same? Does the poltergeist like have that same kind of like field sort of like way of like spirits do, or is it more intense?
It's a totally different kind of feeling, and usually it's a palpable feeling that's completely different as well. It's not just about on equipment. You actually feel it. It's tangible. It's in the air. It's whether it's down to the human psyche or not. It is a matter of conjecture, but it feels dark. It feels ominous. You know about it. But it's a totally different thing. But so are the values. You don't seem to get the same kind of activity upon your instruments. It doesn't work like that. There doesn't seem to be one go-to kind of set of phenomena that you can explain away as being a poltergeist is responsible for this, so this will happen, or a poltergeist is responsible for this, and this will happen.
Yeah.
beyond the obvious things that people know about interference by things being thrown about,
Yeah.
objects being moved, cutlery being stacked, even furniture being stacked, people being pushed, touched, all that kind of thing. So outside the physical phenomena, the scientific kind of thing doesn't have a controlled study, so it's a little bit more difficult to ascertain whether you're measuring it on equipment for that very reason.
Yeah. With that, what do you think about how poltergeists? Because I know they're saying that with poltergeists, do you think they use telekinesis to move things, or can that be for spirits as well? Because I know when they move things, they need extra force. They need extra. They can use the environment. They can use you. They can use your technology. What do you think about that?
I think I think we know that telekinesis is there's most we know that psychokinesis. Telekinesis is the power of thought transference that manifests itself by the manipulation of things within the physical world. And spirits aren't physical;
Yeah.
they don't have a mind. Whilst they might be sentient, knowledgeable, and interactive, and they might have a soul and a personality, they don't have a mind in its strictest sense. They don't have a brain, they don't have a physical form, so they're not held within the constraints of the physical body for that reason. And I don't think they need telekinesis or psychokinesis to move things. I think when things are being touched by people or affected by, it's by people. That might be going through emotional disturbance, they're going through a certain age or time of their life. And it's usually sort of associated with prepubescent teenage girls. A lot of the big cases throughout history are associated with that kind of activity. And I think it's manipulation of the energy within the environment which causes things to move. Now, whether that, and I think it's different, separate events as well. So you can also have three different situations where one is completely because of the people within the environment going through emotional instability for whatever outside factors, or they're going through like different hormonal changes. You've also got the fact that it's completely down to spiritual activity or interaction, and then you've got the third scenario where it's a mixture of the two, where there's spiritual activity which is amplified by what's going on with the person in the environment, and or what's going on with the person in the environment being amplified by what's going on with the spirit. But you see that the term poltergeist in itself is like a misnomer, because it's like noisy ghost, noisy spirit, and it's we're dealing with spiritual energy, not ghost, which is a residual kind of imprint upon an environmental energy caused by trauma or caused by a certain event, and it's like a pre-recorded kind of non-interactive, non-sentient imprint upon the environment. Whereas a spirit ostensibly is an understanding, sentient creature that has a personality that it did for the most part when it was a living being, or it's a spirit energy which is a gestalt entity, which has never lived or never had form, which is a combination of different factors that have caused it to come into being. And there's lots of other things that spirits can be, but broadly speaking, there's lots of reasons why you might experience poltergeistic activity. But are they using telekinesis to move things? I don't think they need to use telekinesis. I think they're at a vibrational frequency where they're actually interacting with the molecular structure of the environment.
Now let's get into poltergeist. I mean, poltergeist. Okay. With poltergeist, what's a good way to take that out of the house? Like, is it possible, or is it attached to that person that's causing the poltergeist?
That is a good question, and that again depends upon the very situation that you're dealing with. Is it easy? It's only as easy as the situation that you're in. If you're in a place, or you're in a location where the people that are going through it are so massively traumatized by it that they don't believe anything can change, then they are adding to the negatively charged atmosphere in that environment. So in a way, they are then feeding the very fear that they're feared of. So because of that, it makes your work as a paranormal investigator easier as far as getting evidence, quote unquote, but more difficult in being able to alleviate the phenomena that's going on in the house and being able to help the people that have called you in there in the first place. and it's an intent. If you go into a location to do a cleansing of a poltergeist, and your intent is that you think you're going to fail straight away, and I'm not talking about religious belief here, I'm talking about intent as in what you want to do, how focused you are in your job, then you're going to find it a lot tougher to be able to move anything on in the first place. If you don't have any volition in your words or your actions, then you're wasting your time being there. On top of which, you have to have the correct knowledge with how to do it and how not to put the family or the people that are in the environment through any more trauma than they already need to be, by making sure you do your job correctly in the first place as a paranormal investigator. Now, of course, you will know, and the people in the chat will know, that not every paranormal investigator knows how to do a cleansing or knows how to do a cleansing correctly. And I hear many tale of people that do a cleansing and they come away and they themselves have got negative energy around them. And that's happened to me. That has happened to me. You can become a little bit complacent about it and walk away from a location and drag some negatively twisted juju along with you. That negativity can come along with you. Is it easy? It's only as easy as it can be made. Do you mean how do you go about doing it? Which is an entirely different question. That's a different thing entirely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just one thing I want to know, like, how do you do it? Like, what kind of stuff do you use? Do you use like sage or talking to them like they were once living, understand where they're coming from, to help them move on.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally know where you're coming from. Yeah, I mean, I think you should have that level of respect with any kind of thing you're dealing with. Personally, I really do. I think that level of respect should be afforded anything and anyone, just like you would in the real world. As for implements, again, that depends upon your intent. If you're a religious person, then you can use the iconology that is relevant to your religion that you ascribe to and have faith in, because that will empower you with a positivity to affect change in that environment. So if you are in that environment and you are feeling positive, you can affect positive change upon that energy. Because I'm not religious, I don't take a crucifix, but I will take other things. Whether it be crystals, because of the vibrational frequencies, and because they're like they're matter, just like we are. They're an absolute construct in a non-absolute universe. I don't want to go too deep into all that side of it, but I will. Crystals, because of the way that they can manipulate energy and cleanse energies. And also for personal protection. If some people might want to use crystals for personal protection, some people will do a grounding ritual or a grounding prayer, whichever works for them. As far as when it comes to the actual cleansing side of it, some people use, of course, holy water or blessed water. Again, that's up to the individual. We will use clean spring water because of the purity that's involved in that and the natural minerals that are involved in that, because the intent is still there behind using that water as if it was holy water. I mean, in all intents and purposes, it's fulfilling the same thing. Yes, white sage. White sage is one that a lot of people use. It's a very common one to use. I've found it can be not as potent. I want to use my words carefully, but not as potent as some other things can be in very heavily charged negative environments. So maybe mugwort, frankincense, myrrh, black sea salt, Himalayan salt, rock salts. So quite a lot of things, incense, lots of different objects that we will then go in with. And then there will be a certain order in which we do it. In a normal house cleansing, we'll start from the top of the house and work down, clear the energy inside the room, clear the boundaries around the room, then move on to the next room. And if ostensibly sealing the doorway last, so you seal the windows, whether you smudge in using your feather and your clamshell, and if you're using white sage or whether you're using mugwort, and fan it around. And different people do different things. As long as the intent's there, it works. And clean off, or rather clean around the window, using whatever incantation or ritual or saying that you want to, and then do the inside of the room, and then seal the doorway. Then move on to the next room, do the landing, do all of it, and then go downstairs, lastly finishing with the front and back doors. So you've sealed that, you've done the entire house of the energy. And even if a lot of people do the boundaries of the property with salt afterwards, whether say it's like Himalayan salt or black salt.
Now, can I interrupt you for a second? The salt,
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, is it blessed? Like all the stuff that you use, or is it blessed so the spirits doesn't come back in that sort of like area?
I think people are quite at liberty to use blessed salt. For me, it's all about intent. It is about intent. It's the same as in the physical world. If you want to do something and you want it bad enough, you're going to do it, regardless of what. Whether you use the iconology or the focal points of physical things to bring about that change or not is entirely up to you. Now, some people will use blessed salt, yeah. Some people will look at salt as being it represents the element of earth. It represents the element of Mother Nature. It represents the eye of Gaia. It's also cleansing. It's pure, and that will be enough for them. Yeah, depending upon their shtick, as it were. But certainly, some people will use blessed salt, cleansed salt, however you want to put it across. It's just sodium to me. You know, I don't use blessed salts, and I've never had any problem. But it's down to the individual.
Now with the residual energy, let's go to that. Like, how do you pass someone on through that? Because I know I know there's a stain. They're like, let's say they moved on, right, and they had horrible death or something. They keep on reliving their life reliving their death over and over again. Like, how do you get rid of that imprint in the house? Because a house records death, all the death and happiness and whatever.
Do you mean the stone tape theory?
Yeah, stone tape theory. Yeah.
The thing is, when it comes to the around the yard, if you want to do the perimeters of it, if people are experiencing, sorry, I'm just looking at that we've just highlighted. If they're experiencing it outside in the garden, you absolutely can. But more often than not, from what I've seen and experienced, most people are more concerned about being able to sleep inside their own house. Yeah. Not so much whether they got activity in the yard, but I wouldn't see any reason why not, because a perimeter is a perimeter. So absolutely, 100%, why not? But not always have done around an outhouse, and also have done around a garage, which has been attached to a business property. So we have, but do we do it all the time? The answer to that would actually be no. The perimeter being just right, the immediate footings of the house, the entryways, the exitways, and obviously the windows and things like that. Occam's razor. Sorry, Eli, what was the question again? How do you stone tape theory? How would you cross them over?
Well, because I know with like with stone tape theory, like, and it's mainly, you know, how like someone dies and they relive their death over and over again, like in the house. How do you pass them? How do you pass them on when they die? When they're dead already, how do you pass them on?
Well, for the most part, that's again down to belief system, yeah. And the older spirits or the older type of energies that you encounter, for the most part, is you're going back to a time when religion wasn't just used as a control mechanism. It was actually fervently believed because people wanted evidence of the afterlife, and they wanted salvation, and they wanted a reason for living. Excuse me. So you still have that level of you have that level of belief, you have that level of understanding, you have that level of faith, and you have that level of wanting to be a pure energy, which is the base principle of why people believe. And some people believe because they're frightened. So in that instance, if you say, I can wear a crucifix, and I could wear a crucifix to interact with a spirit which deeply believes in God, but they would recognize that symbology and associate with it, even if I didn't believe in it. But if I tried to use the power of God or invoke God to do it, then my focal point wouldn't be anywhere near as powerful, because I don't have the faith or power to do it. I don't have my intention wouldn't be correct. So it wouldn't be focused enough. So when they're imprinted upon the energy, these older ones, the likelihood is that they've probably got a more spiritual background. Not always, but a more spiritual background than our more religious background that I might have had. So there are other people that would take on board that role, or we would get other people involved to take on board that role, which is easier said than done, because ministers and you know, you try going down the theological route when it comes to doing cleansing, you can come across so many barriers, and not a lot of people want to do it. You can go through the ritual of doing it, but the physicalities of doing it is, I'm not a medium. I'm not a spiritualist medium. I'm probably sentient. I'm probably clairsentient. I can pick up on energies and pick up on the change of energy. But there are other people that can do that job and communicate with the energy and be able to help it move on. But the stone tape theory for me isn't a sentient entity. It's just replaying something. So there isn't any kind of anything to move on. You're dealing with a recording. You know, you're not dealing with something that you can communicate with and reason with, or say, look, everything's okay. Your family are waiting for you. You know, don't be afraid. You know, you can pass over. Don't be afraid of doing so. When you do, you will be at peace. You will be back with your loved ones. Everything's going to be okay. You're not doing that because it doesn't have an understanding of what you're doing. It's a recording upon the environment. But things can change and affect the level of frequency sometimes, because you do get perennial or annual or seasonal hauntings, where you might only experience certain phenomena of, say, seeing a monk walk down the center aisle of an abbey or something, but he only ever does it near Christmas time, but he does it every single year, you know. But you can also get situations where that can be impacted upon, whether that be building work or whether that be emotional change, or there's lots of factors that can change it and either amplify it or reduce it. And you've also got to take it, because it's a big thing, Eli. It's not quite as simple as how do you do this and how do you do that, because you can also go into an environment where you're the only person who experiences that and everybody else doesn't. So then it only becomes a problem for you. You are the only one seeing the results of that stone tape theory. You are the only one seeing the effects of this person who thinks they're dying 1,000 times, because you're the only one that can see it. Do you understand what I'm saying? You might be with a group of 10 people, but 9 of them aren't seeing anything.
Have you ever experienced one?
Seeing a ghost.
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
Or a replay of someone's death. Have you ever seen it?
The replay of somebody's death? Yes.
Yeah.
I have.
Would you mind if you could share that experience with us?
I've seen this was near. Yeah, okay, well, yeah. It was near a Quaker burial ground, and we'd done a number of investigations there, trying out equipment. Because it was one of them type of places where you could pretty much say, look, something's going to happen here. It's going to be guaranteed. You know, so you're gonna think, right, well, we'll get all the equipment out, we'll get some hits on the meters. It's good, and it was a good place to take people who were new to paranormal investigation. You know, you could get them into that location, see how they got on. So we'd gone down there to do this anyway, and there's a road that is right next to this big lake. And at the side of the lake is a bricked-in graveyard, well, stone walls around a graveyard. Now, there's only 12 graves inside this graveyard. It's very small. But the lake has now become a fishing lake. Now, years ago, before it became this, it was open for development, and they dug up 200 burial sites, I believe.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, that's massively disturbed energy, as you can relate to, and everybody else, that, you know, that can only be a bad thing as far as like stirring up energy is concerned. And we'd placed out some meters. I was at the time using a night vision camera, which, much to my chagrin, when it came to it, didn't pick up any of the event that I'm going to tell you about. But we'll go on to why night vision cameras aren't the be all and end all later, maybe. And I'm walking down this road parallel to where this stone wall is, and I heard what seemed to be crying on the other side of the stone wall.
Wow.
So I stopped, I looked over to my left, and I couldn't see anything, but I got a massive spike on the tri-field, the TX100, I believe. I got a massive spike on that, and I thought, oh, you know, that's interesting. That was it. It was just a disembodied cry. Got a spike of meter. That is the end of it. Until I turned to face my front again to continue on the road, and directly in front of me, the first thing that I saw was what looked like 2 people on the floor. And I thought, well, you know, what's going on there? What are they doing there? It's like in the middle of the road, you know, they'll get hit by a car. Car does come along.
Yeah.
But it was actually a guy knelt on top of a woman, almost like knelt on either side of her waist, you know, a knee either side of her waist. So he was over the top of her, and she had her hands up as if trying to protect herself. And it took me a second or two to realize it was like, no, this isn't right. They're not real. They're weird. The clothes don't look right. And they look like there was imperial dress from around, I don't know, 1600s maybe, something like that. It's hard to say. But yeah, say 17th, 18th century. And he had hold of a rock. And she had her hands up to defend herself. And I saw his hand come down and strike at her head with the rock. And then they disappeared. And then in my head, I visualized, and this is going to sound weird, and I accept that. I sort of felt myself looking up at a guy who was straddled either side of me, and just as his hand was coming down, and I remember feeling almost like really terrified for a second, and then the image went away, and it like everything on the road was clear, and it was like, that's the most recent one, by the way. It's happened more times than that, but I knew that he'd smashed her head in with a rock. He'd killed her with a boulder many years ago, and that sort of like it didn't scare me. I wasn't scared of it. It was more, it drained me physically. I felt like sick. I would like headaches for the rest of the night. I just couldn't focus or anything like that. I actually felt more angry about what had gone on. I was almost like annoyed that what had gone on. And that's all I sort of remember about it, because we just come away from there and it was forgotten about. But that was the most recent one. It was about 3 years ago, I think 4 years ago.
Wow, that's amazing. Just actually see that, just actually see their face experiences, you know, and their face expressions and stuff like that, when they pass, and like just like what they were wearing, and you know, like it's amazing experience.
It was illuminating.
Wow. Jax, do you have any questions?
Oh yeah. What do you think about residual hauntings?
In a nutshell, I think,
Like the loop.
well, I've experienced a lot of that, and I've seen a lot of evidence for that kind of thing going on. I mean, the most recent one for me is a gallows. Is at a gallows, and this has got a story attached to this. But obviously, don't want to start going on telling too many stories and stuff because people will get bored of it. But it was a gallows.
No.
And the reports were that people would see somebody swinging from the gallows, and one of the hands would be missing, and that was the thing that stood out. The hand would be missing. Now, most of the other reports were that they would see what looked like a woman, which had no legs. There was no legs to this woman, would fly towards their car as they drove down this street, up over the bonnet or the hood, as you say in the States, over the windscreen, gone. And then they'd screech to a halt and nothing. They'd start up the car and it would happen again. Did the same thing, as if it's restarted, flying towards the car, up over the hood, over the windscreen, gone. What's, you know, again, and they'd try and start up the car, go down the road a little, and it'd happen again. Same kind of thing, flying at the car, and it's like, well, there's either like multiple people are trying to commit suicide by running at the car, or something like really, really weird's going down there. Now, what had allegedly gone on is there was a local landowner who was jealous of this particular woman. He liked this particular woman. He was a local magistrate, I believe. And he didn't like the fact that this, you know, he couldn't win her attention. He couldn't get her love, kind of thing. So he obviously really begrudged her husband. Now, her husband unfortunately got caught poaching deer. So, of course, he's the magistrate, so he wants to impose the most heaviest fine that he can upon this guy, which is paying the ultimate price, which is death. So had him executed, had him hung at this site. So it's this guy, what you see at this hanging at where these gallows are. Now, this young woman has been at the feet of her husband when he's been hung, sobbing, and she's been approached by a woman that's flew across the track just suddenly appeared at a side that was described as, and you know that this word gets thrown about a lot without people understanding it, a witch. And it's just, this witch has appeared and said, you know, if you want revenge, I can get you revenge, but all I need from you is one of the hands from your husband to make into a candle.
Wow.
You know, to use human flesh and tallow to make a candle. So she could do a needle and candle spell to focus her energy to get revenge for this young woman. So which she agreed and cut the hand off. So allegedly, this is why you see the hand, the spirit of the guy with his hand missing. But he always replays the same thing. He'll always swing from side to side. He'll always, this witch or whatever you want, this woman will always appear shooting down the road, but do it constantly. We'll do it time after time after time after time after time, cyclically in the same night. You can see it multiple times, like it's playing on a loop. Now, you can't interact with it. There's no communicating with this. There's none of that. However,
do you think they're aware that they're doing it, though? Do you think they're aware that they're doing it?
No, not at all. No, I don't think that. No, I don't. I think because a lot of the underneath the ground is still some of the stones and the footwork where this gallows was based, and I think the energy is imprinted upon a lot of that because that's from the time period, and also into the very ground itself, because the same. I don't want to hang on this too long, so sorry if I'm going on, but the same experiences that she told hundreds of years ago was that before this woman appeared at her side, everything went quiet. Like, the wind stopped, everything went quiet, deadly still, and then all of a sudden there was like a heavy rushing, whistling sound, and then this old woman appeared at the side of her. And that is exactly the same thing that people experience. The road is even called Gallows Clough Road. Yeah, wow. Gallows Clough Road. And this is the kind of phenomena that people experience. Everything goes really quiet. Then all of a sudden there's like a rushing, heavy, loud whistling noise. And this figure, what looks like a woman, but you can't see her legs, flies towards them, disappears as it gets into them, or flies towards the car, up over the hood, up over, and so on. But you see, it's imprinted upon the energy within there. We've tried multiple times to do spirit box sessions there and completely blanked. We've tried EVP recordings using digital audio recorders, absolutely nothing at all. We've tried all kinds of things. We've used pendulums, dowsing rod, nothing at all. Nothing to suggest any kind of communication, nothing. Have we seen something? Yes. We have seen what looked like a figure of a shadow swinging in midair, because obviously the gallows are no longer there. Only briefly, but what looked like somebody was like, you know, is he stood in the trees, that guy? Because the trees are just behind it. And it was like, that doesn't look right. Is he stood midway up a tree? And it's like, no, he's floating in midair. And then he disappeared. But no interaction, no. So a ghost can't interact with you. A spirit can, and does, you know.
Because a lot of people they with intelligent spirits and everything else and ghosts, they get that kind of wrong. Like, they're saying, well, I talked to a ghost, you know what I mean? Like, I know there's different types of spirits and stuff like that. It's sort of like going back to where it said where they go, what is a ghost, you know what I mean? Like, there's different types of spirits and ghosts and entities, you know. A spirit is a spirit of a dead person who has not moved on into the afterlife. In cases he returned afterlife into the world of the living. Like, a lot of people get confused of a ghost and a spirit that can talk to you, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and the interchangeability of the terminology isn't mutually exclusive. You know, it's just become a buzzword for people to say it is ghost, spirit, ghost, the same thing, and that's fine. That's great. But when you try to explain your experience or how it's possible, then you do need to differentiate between what goes on. You know, you do. Are you? You know, but some people will say. That a spirit can haunt, and a ghost by definition can haunt. So a place can be haunted by a ghost, a place can be haunted by a spirit. So to say a place is haunted doesn't necessarily mean that it's one or the other, because it can be both or either or. But it is like a terminology that is used interchangeably a lot. Yeah, absolutely. And there's even instances where you might see a ghost, or a ghost might be seen, but it has nothing to do with the death of the person or thing you're seeing. In many cases in England, there is reports of Roman soldiers, Roman legionaries marching. Some of them are on horseback, carrying cattle. Walking along with cattle, like carrying supplies, and like a legion of these. There can be hundreds of figures being seen. Now they're just marching. They've not been ambushed. They've not been killed. They've not experienced any trauma. But they're there. They are there in that environment, and they're happily marching away. Now they're only being seen from the knees up or something like that, because the road they were marching on is a couple of feet lower than the physical road you're walking on now. But they weren't killed. The chances are these people either left the Roman auxiliary legionary, or died in a totally different battle many years later, died of old age, went back to Rome and grew a vineyard. But you're still seeing the imprint of their energy upon their environment. So you're seeing a ghost, and it's not the ghost of a dead person. So it's not a spirit. And that's the divide. That's where the divide is, and what people don't get. A ghost is not a spirit. And a spirit is not a ghost. It's an interchangeable terminology, but there is a difference. If you just use that one example, for instance.
It's like, I know, I don't know if it's wrong or not, but kind of like a different, like what really, like when, like, it's like a different kind of stone that everybody has on their land. It's sort of like, what is that kind of stone?
Limestone, sandstone.
That causes the imprint. You know what I mean? In the environment.
There's lots of different ones that are responsible for doing it to varying degrees. But I mean, you brought me onto a good point that needs raising. Is if you're doing any kind of research into a location where you're wanting to do an investigation, or where it's allegedly haunted, is to check the local area for mineral deposits. Find out both the topography and the geological makeup of the area that you're doing the investigation in, because they can be responsible. There can be so much going on naturally that can be responsible for different energy values. Like I say, you've got limestone and sandstone and quartz deposits, and even like lead and stuff like that can massively change the type of energy readings and energy interaction that you're going to have within a given environment.
Is a real quick, I'm sorry, I know Jax has a question. Is that true about electricity and water mixed in to cause a lot of paranormal activity?
Sorry, brother. I'm sorry. No, go on.
Oh, you're good. No, you're good.
From what I've seen, it can be amplified. Yes, absolutely, it can be amplified. I think you've just got to look at the power, the energy of water, the force of the earth, the force of Mother Nature in its truest and most rawest form is absolutely mind-bogglingly overwhelming. Yeah, it's massively important. I think water can massively affect what goes on. I really do. In fact, in a lot of situations, that tends to be an actual phenomena that you get, which will be puddles of water at locations for no reason whatsoever. They can appear in the kitchen. They can appear in places even briefly, and then you go back 10 minutes later and it's like it was never there at all. But can they almost be, for want of a better term, like a generator or a battery to amplify spiritual or energy within that environment? 100% totally. I think so, yeah. Water, electric, as well as the mineral deposits as well, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Quartz and limestone, sandstone, yeah, 100%. It makes a difference. But also, sorry, I was just going to say, they can also affect your instrumentation. So you can also get a lot of false positives with your tech if you're not aware of what's going on around you, especially when it comes to visuals, because you can get a phenomenon called tribal luminescence, which is basically a minute tremors within certain minerals where they oscillate and vibrate. And because they do that, they heat up. And as they heat up, they expand. and they can light up, they can illuminate, they can cause sparks, they can also cause small pockets of gas to explode, and people will see these as like sparks or orbs or faint glows or things like that, you know. So the mineral deposits and makeup of the place where you're doing an investigation is, if you've got a knowledge of that, then you're in a better place to do the investigation. Yeah.
Oh, you got a question, Jack? Sorry.
Okay, so like, all right, I wondered this last. So like Gettysburg, could that have residual, intelligent, and like just the like a residual haunting, the intelligent haunting, and spirits and ghosts all together?
Yeah.
That was a massive disaster. That was a massive massacre.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So that's probably like a
chance.
hodgepodge.
I would agree. I would say it's definitely a hodgepodge. I would also say that it's probably it's a huge event. There's going to be a lot of energy there. There was a lot of people there, and it's absolutely. Is there going to be ghosts? Yes, people. That's what I think people are mostly seeing. Is there going to be spirits going back? Well, you have to ask yourself this: if soldiers, combatants that were killed there, that still want answers, or still are still held by that place, then they will go there. They will visit there if they want to. Now, these are not ghosts, but the ghosts will still be there, imprinted upon there. There's lots of footage out there. I mean, the video footage of what looked like the Confederate soldiers marching up the hill at the Battle of Devil's Den, you know, Little Round Top. That's pretty famous on the internet. That's a pretty famous bit of footage. Are they spirits? No. Are they ghosts? Yeah, you know, in the strictest sense of the word, yes. We can't prove that they are, but that's what they appear to be. But can the spirits be there also? Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. Can it be just, you know, a heavily charged atmosphere because of history? Absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head by saying it's a hodgepodge. It's a melting pot of all of the above. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense. I mean, a lot happened there, and it was a bad thing.
Yeah.
Now, when you say like with it's like sort of like with Ghost, you know what I mean? Like, so they can't. So you're saying they can't move objects, right?
Ghosts?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Because I just question, because I'm just like, it's kind of confusing me. I mean,
Spirits, maybe. Spirits, very possibly. Spirits, it seems that they can. Ghosts, no, because ghosts are non-interactive, they're just energy that are pre-recorded. Like this, when we finish this stream, it will be stuck on YouTube and people can watch it afterwards. That will be the ghosts of this conversation. That will be what's left over from this conversation, is a recording. The ghost of this interview with me will be on YouTube. It's exactly the same. That's what a ghost is. So no, but can spirits, can beings that, well, okay, we can't prove that they exist, but we're all ostensibly trying to. But the energy, can they manipulate the energy? Considering the fact that they are begat of energy and that energy is never truly destroyed, that we are completely dependent upon energy. That molecular frequency vibrations is responsible for every single thing in the universe, whether it's physical, mineral, you know, whether it's liquid, whether it's gaseous. Absolutely. Is there the chance of an interaction at a molecular level, although we don't know what yet? Absolutely. So can spirits do it? I think it's not difficult to understand why they can. If you come away from mainstream science, if you step away from Newton's physics and go towards quantum physics, and you understand the basis of quantum physics, which is, you know, thinking outside the constraints of normal everyday science, then it makes a lot of sense why energy can affect energy. If you discard the terminology, if you do away with all the labels and you just think of it all as energy, and energy interacting with energy, of course you can. You use heat, it boils water. That boils, turns into steam. That steam then becomes heat again, which can then form condensation, which then becomes water. You know, you're dealing with energies and vibrations. So, do I think spirits can? Yes.
It's like they say we come from Earth. You know, we're, you know, like when we die, we give back to the Earth. You know, so I mean, basically we're water, we're steam, whatever. You know what I mean? Because that's where we come from. You know.
Yeah.
So what do you think about orbs?
Ooh, this is always a juicy one, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is a good one.
This is always a good one. I knew that you might throw this in here.
I throw everything. No.
Yeah, I knew you might come up with this one. What do I think about him? I think you should throw most of them right out the window and ignore it completely. That's what I think. I think 98% of it is going to be dead skin cells. It's going to be water vapor. It's going to be dust. It's going to be pollen. It's going to be, you know, whether people want to admit it or not, it's going to be bugs. However, there are some that are not. There are some. If you are capturing orbs, or you're capturing anything on a medium which uses a sensor, whether it's a APCS sensor, whether it's a CMOS sensor, you know, whether it's a so Matthew, thank you. Oh, he's off his head, isn't it? You know, or whether you're using a CCD sensor, a charge coupled device, anything like that, it's prone to having failings at resolving an image because of focal points and the amount of light coming in.
Yeah.
So it will struggle to resolve smaller objects. It will focus upon a particular area. It will render that into sharp contrast, and anything nearer to that, it will just render as a blur. So you can write a lot of them off. If you capture an orb on a 35mm camera, you know, one of the old-fashioned ones, if you capture an orb, right, and you see it visually with the naked eye, then that's a different thing entirely. Does it mean that it is the energy of a spiritual being or not? Not necessarily so. It can also be a completely natural scientific phenomenon we don't know about yet.
So how do you explain some people that, you know, see faces in orbs, legs? I mean, animals in orbs. Like, is it just is it just your brain seeing what you want to see or make it out? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think in most cases it absolutely is. Yeah, it's pareidolia, isn't it? I mean, if you're going to see an orb which is 2 inches across, why is there going to be a horse stuck in the middle of that?
Yeah.
Unless it's the ghost of a My Little Pony.
Right.
It's just, you know, it's nonsensical to think of it as like you're going to see Matrix in it's pareidolia. The human brain that's the way the human brain works. You know, even if somebody who doesn't believe in the paranormal or doesn't believe in spirituality can look up at the clouds and see something float across the sky and say, "Hey, that looks like a unicorn." You know what I mean? Because it might have the appearance of a unicorn, but is it a unicorn in the sky made out of clouds?
Yeah.
No, you know. So, you know, no, I don't think so. I think when you see when it comes to orbs, because I've seen one or two of the comments, you know, if there's some kind of interaction or if it appears to be moving in a manner that suggests some kind of control or some kind of intelligence, then that's a completely different thing entirely. But if it's just something that's randomly flying across the ground or you're just capturing it in the air, then the chances are, if you stand up and start moving around and you take a picture and all of a sudden there's a load of orbs, you've shook up a load of dust. You've disturbed a load of skin cells. You know what I mean? That's what you've done.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not a big believer in orbs. They've been discounted many, many times and proven to be absolute, you know, nothing relative. If you see it with the naked eye, I'm impressed. If you see it, you capture it on an emulsion or silver halide, then that's more impressive. Is it absolute empirical evidence that it's spiritual? Absolutely not.
Cool. Okay, fair enough. So what do you think about funnel ghosts?
Again, I just think it's yet another terminology that people associate with physical objects, explaining something they don't understand. That's why I done it, Matthew. Actually, I knew you was there, brother. That's why I said it.
Sorry, I'm asking all these questions.
No, you're good. No, you're good. I mean, it's a relatively new terminology for the most part. I mean, explaining, a very old phenomenon, isn't it?
Well, I mean, what they say on there is like funnel ghosts are associated with cold spots.
Yeah.
If you enter a home or building.
Yeah, like
And you start to go chill.
vortices, what they consider vortices or portals, just like they will with a mirror, what might be also considered a funnel ghost. But when it's the terminology, isn't it? Funnel ghost.
Yeah,
If
but
it was,
isn't funnel? But
funnel
isn't funnel?
spirit, it might.
Sorry, go ahead. I was gonna
No.
say, isn't funnel ghost actually you see like a? I wanted to say no, it's not the wrong. I think that's the right one. No, that's a wisp ghost. I'm sorry.
No,
Where
you're
you
okay.
see like the ghost in someone's picture. I mean, I think that's it. I'm not sure. I think I'm pulling that
Yeah, and
wrong.
yeah, for the most part, and they can also get seen in mirrors and
Yeah,
associated with portals and rents and all that kind of thing. Again, it's that terminology, that the ghost thing is, I don't think they need special gateways and motorways. We need a motorway to get from one place to another as fast as we can to obviously get there as fast as we can. I think as an energy, which is part of a universal energy, doesn't really need to worry too much about being able to appear from one place to the other without too much problem. They can just be there and get there if they want to be there.
yeah.
So I don't put a lot of store in that. I think the way that works is like a reverse psychology kind of thing, where the people that associate it with them conditions are bringing forth that energy themselves, and it's manifesting rather than the other way around, rather than that these objects are actually responsible for it. I think it's the belief system associated with it. Again, it's like, you get people that listen to spirit boxes. If you get somebody that's like, for the most part, a bit of a pessimistic mindset, might be a bit of a doom and gloom kind of person, when they listen to a spirit box, they will hear different words than somebody who's in a good frame of mind or a happy-go-lucky person. They will hear death. They will hear, the good old D word, demon, which everybody likes to throw about. They will hear die. They will hear murder. They will hear all them kinds of things. Whereas the happy-go-lucky person might hear numbers and might hear colors and might hear, a completely different thing. But really, what you're dealing with is the same thing. It's the same noises coming out of the spirit box, but it's the mindset or the energy of the person involved which manipulates what they experience.
So, what do you think about black shadows? I mean, a lot of people say a black shadow's a bad thing, a good thing. What do you give me your take on that?
I think that's a good question, and I like the fact you've asked it. I respect that. It's a good one. You're good at this, aren't you, Eli? I'll give you that. I don't think that there's a black is bad, white is good thing. I don't believe that. I don't think that if you see the outline or the shape or the shadow of that appears to be dark, that you're necessarily dealing with a ghost that is the energy of a person who used to be bad, or the interactive energy of a person, or the spirit energy of a life force or whatever of somebody who is bad now. I just think that's irrelevant. That's just the way that they manifest. I think you're just as likely to come across a negative spirit or a negative energy that might be white. I don't think it means black is bad and white is good. I don't subscribe to that at all.
Yeah, well, it's just like when they say, if you see another image of yourself, what is that called?
Like a doppelganger.
Yeah, doppelganger. It's just like that. It's like if you see one, you die. I never seen one. Like my brother looks like me, but that's about it. But so what's your take on that?
Well, I just think there's so many times that's come across for me that people have said, I saw you the other day, and it's like, I don't think so, because I'm the only person this gorgeous. You know what I mean? So you couldn't. Right. I'm the only. It's like jokingly. There's no way. There's no way you've seen another me. I'm the one and only. But all joking aside, I think you're gonna get that. You're gonna get sort of like them kind of things you've seen. There's lots of famous ones, isn't there? Where there's like a guy from the American Civil War is the spitting image of Nicolas Cage. You know what I mean? Things like that, and they're well known. But do you mean as an actual like composite entity, energy that's sort of like been imposed? It's actually interactive, and it's the spawn. It's the work of the devil, and if you see it, you die because it claims your soul, kind of thing.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
No, I don't believe that. No.
Well, I mean, it's just like going back to the shadow people. Like, have you ever woke up and have you ever seen a shadow person? Or you think it's just because just because your laptop was on, or maybe your TV was on, or light was on in the kitchen?
I think people have woke up and seen. I think
Because you
people
know
have
what I
woke
mean
up
with
and
the light,
yeah,
focusing
absolutely,
your
of
eyes.
course I do. Yeah, absolutely. I think people have woke up and seen something. It hasn't happened to me, and if it has happened to me, I think it's because I'm either I've just come out of REM sleep, or I'm either hypnagogic, a hypnopompic state of waking, or rather of lucidity. But I think people do have experiences where they wake up and there's something there. I've spoke to people that are very vehement about it. They're very vocal about saying, look, I know what I saw. I woke up and there was a spirit in the corner of the room, or there was a black shadow in the corner of the room. And we're like, right, okay, well, we'll have to conduct a few tests and see what happens. And we'll do spirit box tests and EVPs and all this lot. And we'll get indications that it's saying things that were in the corner of the room. Or we'll take a video and there'll be like a weird dark shape momentarily in the corner of the room. Now, you can call it happy coincidence, but if somebody has said, I woke up and I saw a shadow figure in the corner of the room, and then you take video footage, and on that video footage is a shadow in the corner of the room, and you can't explain why it's there, then that sort of lends a little bit of weight to their story, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of people always say, "Oh my God, I've seen eyes with the black shadow and everything else." I'm just like, or they see the shape. Oh, they should see this. They can appear in different forms, or or they can see just the outline of it. Or, I mean, like, a lot of people have experienced a lot of things like that, and I'm just like, do they have eyes? Like, do they have a face? Is it possible for them to attack you, or maybe into your dreams and talk to you or mess with you in there? Like, is that possible? I mean, it's a thought. I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't know much about it, but maybe it's something that could happen to many people. That's their own experience. I
yeah.
never heard about it, but no.
No, what you're saying, I totally get what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely, because it is down to the human condition and it is down to the human experience. Now, I've investigated a lot of places over the years where some seriously bad things have gone on, some really bad stuff. But because of my mindset, even though I might have an experience and might see something, I don't see the same kind of things as other people.
Yeah.
There was one of the guys who used to investigate us was deeply religious, and he would see what he would see would be evil because he had a religious belief, and he associated that with his mindset, and that affected the way that he perceived the event, if you like. I didn't see it as being evil. I saw the same thing. It was a dark shape, but I didn't see red glowing eyes, and I didn't see like long fingers that looked like claws. I just saw a dark shape that looked a bit like the outline of a man, and then it disappeared, and it didn't feel bad. I felt more,
Hey, man.
I'd say, sort of disappointed sort of feeling I got. Like the vibe that the energy was giving off was that something of being let down or something like that, whereas he felt evil. But he saw the eyes, Eli. He saw this figure had eyes to him, and it had long, slender hands as if it had claws. But that's not what I saw, and we both looked at exactly the same thing.
Wow. It's but a lot of people, they see a lot of movies, or they see a lot of they hear a lot of stories, and that's how they're gonna picture them if they have that experience. I don't know if it's true or not, but
No,
that's how I
what
would
you
take
say.
it.
What you're saying is absolutely right. It can impact upon you. I mean, that was that would be one of the ways that you go about doing it in investigations and interviewing people, is to say, what are your interests, and do you watch a lot of paranormal TV shows? And because that the way that people view the field obviously has an effect upon what they believe is true or not, for the most part. A lot of people who don't conduct paranormal investigations but are paranormal fans and watch a lot of these paranormal shows will think that that is how you do an investigation. And in a lot of instances, when they do conduct an investigation of their own, will mimic or copy that type of investigative style, thinking it's what you do, because they watch these TV shows. And it's the same when you go to a reported haunted location and you talk to the clients. If they tell you that they heavily, I watch Ghost Adventures all the time and I watch this all the time and I watch, which is fine. They're allowed to watch whatever they want, of course. But you think, right, okay, well, straight away, there's going to be a sort of preconceived notion as to what you think is happening. So no matter what I try and do as an investigator, I know that I'm going to have a tough time trying to convince you that what you're experiencing is the fact that you've got a flat above a takeaway and all the equipment downstairs in the takeaway is faulty and it's giving off a massive electromagnetic field, which is making you feel nauseous. It's making you have visual hallucinations. It's keeping you awake at night. It's making you feel dizzy. But you're not going to believe me. You're not going to believe that it's down to this pizza place, which no doubt you'll like, Eli, but you're not going to believe it's the pizza place underneath. That it's the pizza place underneath. You're going to automatically think, because you're a fan of this show, that show, and the other show, that it's down to something demonic trying to take your soul.
And especially when you hear like knocks and footsteps, knocks and footsteps and voices, and when you they're unexplained, but it could be the pipes in the wall. It could be the neighbors, banging out loud. I mean, you gotta always, try to debunk this. If not, then maybe it's paranormal. I mean,
yeah, you're absolutely right. It could also be down to actual unexplained phenomena as well. You don't know, but you can't just immediately jump to the fact that this house is 2 minutes away from a graveyard. So all of a sudden, 650 dead people are all hanging around at your house, knocking on the wall. You've got to rule out everything else as well before you even remotely come to that kind of conclusion.
Exactly. I think, man, there's a lot of questions out there. I think, how do you do as an individual determine myth from truth?
That was a good question. I saw that come up myself. I just quickly
I know,
switched over to the YouTube, and I saw that. How to determine myth from truth? The honest answer there, Boomer, is I take a little bit from both and then sort of let experience and evidence speak for itself. Because I think that in some of the older locations and in some of the older hauntings, that myth has come about because there's been something that's happened. Something has gone on to cause that myth to sort of like come about. A lot of myths are based in fact, even if loosely based in fact, and even if they become heavily hybridized from fact, there will still be sort of some element of fact or some element of history that plays a part in it. So be cognizant of it, be aware of it, and when you do your research, understand that that is the case. But personally, on a personal level, I think you shouldn't totally ignore the myth. I think you should be aware of it. But I think you should pay attention to the facts. And if you can't explain or separate the two, then you're looking at something which is paranormal. Loosely speaking. Yeah.
A lot of people say like they're always attacked, it could just be poltergeists or ghosts or spirits or whatever. And who is at risk mainly to be attacked?
I would say even not taking poltergeist events into any kind of consideration, which are very rare. They are rare. Even just going out doing an investigation and being open to being physically manhandled, for want of a better word, is somebody who's more likely to leave themselves open to that kind of thing in the first place. Somebody who might be emotionally feeling negative, might be feeling a little bit down. Somebody who's in not in the best state of mind. They might not have had a good day. They might not have had a lot of sleep, so they might be feeling physically weaker as well. That kind of thing. I also think, you sort of, if you watch the TV shows, you're led to believe that it's the most boisterous person who's willing to take on and confront these spirits by shouting at them and shaking his fist. That he's the one that's going to get thrown across the room and end up with scratch marks across his face because he's incurred the revenge of the demon and all this kind of thing.
Exactly.
But I think it's, again, it's down to energies and intent. If you go into that location and you're not up for it, because I've experienced it, I've seen it firsthand. This happen, and they're not really up for it, or they over they're overcompensating for the fact that they're scared by being very noisy. And you know yourself, you think, yeah, this is all, you're putting all this on because you're actually like, you're scared, you know, but you don't want to admit you're scared. They're more prone to experiencing phenomena that other people might not. Like, I feel dizzy, or, you know, I don't feel well, I feel sick, I feel like I need to sit down, or I've just seen something, because they'll respond more readily to external stimuli than somebody else. So whereas you might be able to think, you know, you might hear something and pass it off and thinking, well, it is a little bit breezy, the chances are that was two branches knocking together. You know,
Yeah.
it could totally freak somebody else out.
Oh, bad.
You know,
Yeah.
so they're more likely to be open to certain phenomena and stimuli that you won't if you're in a different mindset. And it does that also carry over to, will they become targeted by spiritual entities? The chances are, if you believe in that kind of thing, yes, because you believe in that kind of thing, so you will draw that kind of activity.
I agree. Um, Now, can you tell us a little bit more? Let's go back, but about your places that you investigated and what kind of personal experience or things you caught on camera in those
Yeah,
locations.
yeah. The type of places over the years range from obviously residential properties, you know, just people's houses,
Oh yeah.
to business properties. I've done castles, I've done stately homes, the hospitals. I've done a
Sorry.
lunatic asylum. I've done a morgue. I've done underground vaults. I've done air raid shelters. I've done military bases. A lot, you know, over the years, lots of different things. I've been lucky in many ways. You know, blessed in many ways.
Mhm. I bet you see some crazy stuff.
I've seen some, yeah, I have. If energy can't be, why they're not. I think because when people see spirits, or what they could perceive to be a spirit, they see in the outline of a person, and they sort of impose what they think they're seeing a lot of the time. I also think because it might also run hand in hand with intelligence level and civilization level, as well as a belief system. So the older, more like Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal, as you've put, and Homo erectus, and that were a different state of understanding within their environment. And I think they do, or them spirit energies are around. It's just the way that the living perceive them brings them into a different time frame, if you know what I mean, Shire. I think they see them, but they don't associate them with being from that time frame because of the romanticism that surrounds the paranormal, and the sort of subconscious mindset that people have about the paranormal. They'll put them into different periods and all that lot. I mean, ghosts you will see in certain period costume, but some of the ghosts that allegedly get seen are from ancient times. They do get seen. If that, like, just briefly breaching that one, I'll talk to you about that another time, Sherry, if you like. What have I seen? I wouldn't even know where to start. I've seen partial apparitions of you know, something like just the arm of somebody, just the lower part of somebody, like, you know, two legs or the feet. I've seen the upper half of somebody. I've seen the head, but nothing else. This like sort of materialized and then gone. I've seen full body apparitions. I've seen what looked like as if they were me or you, like a proper 3D color, fully stereoscopic Hollywood kind of thing, you know. I've seen outlines of shapes that don't make sense, but that have then turned into figures of what look like humans and also animals. I've seen like mists that form into like tornadoes and then
Wow.
flash into like a spark of light and disappear.
Now,
I've
let me ask you
seen.
a question. How
Mhm.
about I know it's going a little bit out there, but have you seen like I mean, everybody thinks of demons with has horns and everything else, but have you seen anything resemble that in the paranormal field?
Yes. Yeah. But I can't say 100% if that is because I knew about the history of the place and that I knew that people were supposed to see things like that. And because of that, I imprinted that expectation upon my own experience and I saw that because of that. Do you understand what I'm saying? But it was about 8 to 9 foot tall is what it appeared to be. It was just a dark mass. Hunched shoulders. The head looked out of proportion to the rest of the body. The area where the horns would be, the horns didn't stick up and point up in the air like you would expect. They sort of come down at the sides, weirdly. More like dog ear kind of things, almost. But you could sort of tell by the way that it appeared that it looked like that. And it was there briefly and then shrank into what looked like just a dark ball and then completely disappeared. But yes, but I don't know if that's because that's what people told me they see. So because I was there, I experienced it too.
How about like
Wow.
like Maria Antoinette and Mary King of Scots? Even though they were beheaded, do you think that's residual, or do you think that because they were beheaded there, they haunt it, or do you think it's just residual?
I think it's both. I think, if you see, obviously if they're, you used a good terminology before when you said hodgepodge. Because
Yeah.
I think that does really go on a lot in the paranormal because you're dealing with energies. And if you seeing one of these people who are walking around without the head,
right,
then you've got to ask yourself,
yeah,
sorry,
I would not want to see that. I
No,
would
no.
not want to see that.
And the likelihood that is imprinted upon the atmosphere as a recording because, after they had been decapitated, they wouldn't be capable of walking around to leave that image upon the environment in the first place.
Right.
So even am I unmuted? I think so even though if they relived their death to that moment whenever they almost got their head cut off, could they have a residual before they got, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
Both.
totally. I think you formed the question very well. Yeah, I think both. I think yeah, they
Both
can
of
because
them.
they're in a very charged emotional state, and that energy can be imprinted upon the environment. Absolutely, even though they're still alive. And can it be imprinted upon the environment after they're dead? There's, you're alive for a fair few 40 seconds. Has one been timed at? There's a recent guillotine in the very early 1900s in France. And there were studies took on it and activity and the eyes moving. So you still like electrical brain activity many seconds after you've been decapitated. And can that be imprinted upon the environment? Very possibly, yeah, absolutely. But is the headless spirit walking around because there's a headless spirit walking around? I don't know about that. I don't know. I don't know if that's an association after death where the spirit is aware that they've been decapitated and killed and their spirit is still alive, and because of that has some kind of effect upon the residual energy, which then makes that residual energy look like it hasn't got a head because the spirit energy of that ghost, if you like, knows that it was decapitated. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So because of that, it sort of changes the way that the appearance of the recording looks. I wouldn't know about that, but it doesn't make sense to me that, if you're beheaded, you're not going to be walking around without your head. It's pretty well known. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but I'm fairly sure that beheaded people are not known for running marathons after they've been beheaded.
You could throw him any question and answer it.
How about like the ancient Ram Inn? Like so much stuff happened there, like death of children, black magic. I mean, I've seen lots of stuff on that. Do you think that place is really active? Have you been there?
I'll just go back to the yes, Shire, by the way. So 1 minute, Jax. I'll get to that. Absolutely. I saw Shire's,
So many
yeah,
questions.
absolutely. Yeah, you're right, absolutely. Yeah, I've done the Ancient Ram Inn. I was lucky when John owned it, the Ancient Ram Inn. And there was only two areas what seemed to sort of like give off any kind of energy that I felt malevolent when I was there. One of them was the outhouse, the sort of outbuilding where he kept his motorbikes, which was like the addition building later on, where he kept his motorbikes was. There seemed to be a little bit of a feeling around a lot of the horse brasses and the stuffed crow. That's it was in the front room for a while. That there seemed to be like energy sort of surrounding that. The very bottom of the stairs before you turn onto the top of the stone steps where the portrait of the boy is, that had a lot of energy. The only other place really was the attic. The attic felt massively ominous. We got a lot of VMF spikes there, and we got an EVP. So,
what about that, like where they said they found the children's bones in that pit? Is that did you get active?
Where the children's bones have been found in the fire pit where they dug away. Not personally. One of the people at Rivers at the time who was claimed to be a spirit medium said they got very upset when they were near that. In fact, upon seeing it, they instantly wanted to leave the location and didn't come back for a couple of hours because they were massively upset by it. Myself, as a paranormal investigator, when I was in the environment and I saw that, it didn't affect me one way or the other, Jax. It didn't bother me, positive or negative, but it did affect a medium that was with us, and to the extent where they didn't want to be inside the property.
I think, I don't know, maybe it would affect most people, because when you come upon something that it's a child, it's not an adult. It's a different feeling when you know a child was killed. I guess maybe if you're a parent or you're an aunt or you're, you know what I mean? I mean, if being me, if I were in there, I'd get an overwhelming feeling of sadness because I'm a parent. And knowing that those parents didn't have their children anymore. I mean, that's another way of being overwhelmed by it.
Absolutely, totally agree with that, because you could associate with the sense of loss and the tragedy of it. I mean, and even people that aren't parents can't associate with it. But when you are a parent and you understand the level of love and nurture that's required to be a parent, the violence and the sheer horror of what has to be done to bring that about is like, how can you do that to a child? So I completely agree with what you're saying.
What kind of person is in that head to do that? Like, what kind of state did that person have to be in to take an innocent thing and do that to them?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I do agree with that. It does. But personally, me, I didn't get any kind of vibe from that particular area at all. I could lie because it's a well-known place and pretend that it was the best place I've ever been to, but the truth of it is, it really wasn't. It wasn't. It was a bit of a disappointment.
It seems very small, but it is very big. Like from the outside, it's very small. But you get in there, there's rooms everywhere.
Yeah, it's a bit of a TARDIS, but it's also very cluttered. I don't want to be speaking bad of John or anything because he's passed away, but he
was a sweet man. In every video I saw, he was a very sweet man.
He didn't want to throw anything out. He collected everything. There were newspapers from the First World War all over the place, and it's different now. It's being run, it's being managed and that. But I think it's a little bit better. But
I found it interesting how the house is built. Like it's with the street, but it's down below.
Yeah, it's actually just below street. The actual floor level is just below street level. Yeah,
it's pretty cool though how it's built.
Has he given up on me now?
I don't know where Eli went. Eli he's out of questions.
No, it's my daughter.
Not Eli.
So what do you what's your take on Ouija boards?
Oh, I'm glad you've asked that. Because this is really going to divide the side chat. This is really going to divide the side chat. I don't see them as being anything other than another tool, like anything else whatsoever. If you are calling for an energy to come forward and communicate, if you're calling an energy to be in the same environment as you so you can make contact with a spirit or a being or an entity, whatever terminology you want to use, then you are calling for an energy, spirit, entity, or being to be in your environment, whether you're using crystals, whether you're using a dowsing rod, whether you're using a spirit box, a digital audio recorder, a K2 meter. To me, a Ouija board is just a piece of equipment like anything else. It's the intent.
With proper use.
People, I was just coming on to that, yeah, because people believe that they're inherently evil. So I think there's sort of like a little bit of trepidation about using them in the first place. And I think the correct kind of mindset to have is be aware that you are opening yourself up for energies to interfere with your environment, whichever way you look at it. If you think a Ouija board is evil, then you need to be more careful just because of the psychological implications. You need to be more careful about how you open it and how you close the session, just because of the psychological implications about how you're bringing something forward. Yeah. So if you're doing a Ouija board session and you're pretty nonchalant about doing it, you're pretty carefree, you're messing about and you're joking, then that's disrespectful to any kind of energy that you might be communicating with. You wouldn't like it as a person. And you hear untold stories about how many people have bad experiences because they conduct a Ouija board session and they joke or they laugh or they take the fingers away from the planchette or they push the planchette messing about, spelling stupid words, and then wonder why they have bad experiences or they experience strange phenomena. Yeah. But
have you ever been attacked? Have you ever been attacked by using one?
Yes. Oh yes, I told you, Eli. Before we do this, I'll be completely honest with you. Yeah, yes, I have. And this is, I don't really admit this a lot, but I'm sticking to my word. Yes, years ago, we done we didn't even use a Ouija board. We used some cards from a game called Lexicon or something like that, I believe it was called, where each card has just got a giant letter stuck on it. It's a bit like a card version of Scrabble, I expect. I never played it, but we used these to make the letters. Obviously, there were also numbers. We used them, and we used a couple of ripped up pieces of paper for yes, no, hello, and goodbye. And we used a glass tumbler, just your regular glass pitcher or whatever you call them in the States, where you might have a drink of whiskey. You know the kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
We used a small glass tumbler, and we proceeded to do the session. I think it was about 17, so it's about 4 years ago. Nudge, nudge. We proceeded to do the session, and Ouija board got back. It did. That's exactly what happened with Hollywood. That's definitely what spurred it on. But we proceeded to do the session, and the thing is the people that we were doing it with, a couple of them were joking right from the very outset. We could tell that they were pushing the glass tumbler because it wasn't a planchette. I know they said planchette, but it was a glass tumbler, and they were being disrespectful. And then there were other times they were taking the fingers off the planchette, which I think means they were changing the focal point. I don't think it's because the energy is trapped within the glass tumbler or the planchette. I just think it's a focus point for intent and for where you want the power or the energy to manifest. But they were taking the fingers off and on it, and it had been trying to spell out Eddie. It spelled out Eddie in various forms on numerous occasions. And, it eventually got to the stage where I hadn't started to get bored of it because I was finding it, I beg your pardon, really interesting. And the woman whose house we were staying at was getting freaked out. She lived there with the 2 young kids. She was a single mum. And it was a stupid idea to do it in the first place. It's the top and bottom of it. I make no excuses for that. At the time, I remember warning against it, not because I thought there was anything wrong with a Ouija board per se, but because she was calling forth energies in an environment where there were children, and it might not be a good idea. And she was starting to get freaked out by this session. And she took her finger off the glass tumbler. Somebody else took the finger off the glass tumbler. Then somebody else, like the domino effect, and people started taking them midway through a conversation that was spelling out something about falling, and we'd heard stairs. So I'm picking up on what's right. So was this Eddie? Has he fallen down some stairs? Is that what caused his death? Is he trying to tell us that he fell down some stairs to his death? and we're ignoring him and being disrespectful? Is that what's going on? Because I'm getting a bad feeling about this. You know, you could sense that the energy in the room was changing, even though the bulbs weren't on a dimmer switch. It seemed like the room went darker visually. It's really strange. It seemed like everything around got heavier. It seemed like the ticking of the clock on the mantelpiece seemed to go a little bit slower, weirdly. In the UFO circles, you know, it is the Oz factor, or you know, disassociation, and then it moved. The tumbler started to move more rapidly and with more force. The glass started to move around the board and just go into any letters randomly. And I could feel the energy, the force underneath our fingertips. There was only something like 2 of us. One of my friends who used to do paranormal investigators with me. Now, if he was here, he would say he was the last person to take his finger off. He isn't. I'm here, so I'm going to tell you that I was the last person to take my finger off. But we stopped. Our fingers came off. Now, the glass tumbler started to spin right in the center of the board, as if it was rolling around on its rim and spinning. So not spinning right on its edge, but sort of like rolling around its rim centrifugally, just spinning. And it started to get faster and faster and faster. We all backed up against the wall, away from the board. And then the cards, what we'd made the Ouija board out of, flew up off the table. Now that was enough for, I think there were 5 of us all together. I forget now. I remember the event more than the people there. But a few of them had gone out, including the woman whose house it was, leaving me and my mate, if you like. And all the cards had flew up into the air and fell onto the floor. And this glass tumbler's like absolutely spinning. Now it appeared to rise about an inch, maybe 2 inches off the center of the board, still spinning. And we could see the board and not the board because it was a made-up board, but the table where these cards had been on, about an inch or 2 inches underneath this glass, which was levitating and spinning. It then shot over to what was our left and smashed against the wall, showering me and my mate with bits of glass. And of course, that were it. We were gone. Right, we out of the building into the garden. But as far as attacked, no. Showered with bits of glass because a glass smashed against the wall. Yes, that's my bad experience with the Ouija board, or a homemade Ouija board. And I learned from that moment on to always be respectful about conducting spirit communication, whether I'm using a board, a spirit box, an EMF meter, or anything else. If you see me doing a session, you will see that I say please a lot, and I try to be polite for that very reason.
Yeah. When you leave a spirit box, do you just close? How do you close it off?
Well, I'm aware of intent, as I've said multiple times while we've been talking tonight. I'm also aware of belief systems of other people and energies that might have gone on. I'm also aware that when people are giving the last rites, they're giving the last rites religiously. So I will infer a religious connotation sometimes. One that I might use might be something like, I ask all human spirits to return to their resting place and all non-human spirits to return from whence they came by the power of our Lord Jesus Christ and Almighty God, for it is they who command you. Amen. And then, end it. Because it's easy to remember, it's pretty concise, and it's got its connotations. Well, the terminology is irrelevant to me. I'm using it because my intent is to be respectful. I'm using it because my intent is to show that I'm being respectful and close the session. So it is just about intent. To me, they are just words, but it allows me to focus upon the fact that I'm trying to close the session with an intent for it to end and to be respectful.
Cool.
So do you think when kids, they play with Ouija boards, you can buy them in, Walmart for Christ's sake. They go and they play with them, and then, something. I mean, my mom played with one and she saw it levitate. I mean, she never touched it again. They were teenagers, but people say they throw them away and then they find them in their house the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Has it happened? I mean, people have said, if someone says, I threw a Ouija board away and ended up in my house, I'm not going to say that they're lying because I wasn't there, but I mean, I guess it could happen. I mean,
I think it's another good question. I think it's a good point that you're raising. It's massively interesting because I've also heard that. I have had that, or been aware. I wouldn't say had because it didn't happen to me, but I've been aware of that happening with a book. When somebody got a book, which had some weird writing in it that they didn't understand. I learned later on what that writing was about, and it was basically a book about the teachings of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. So, it was an occult book. Because of that, they attributed being freaked out to that. They don't fully understand what it's about, is why. That's a matter for another day, maybe. But they threw it away because they didn't like it. They threw it into the trash, as you say. The following day, when they woke up and went into the front room, it was there, right in plain sight, on top of the fire surround, on the fireplace, on the mantelpiece. There it was, underneath the mirror, back out of the trash. There. Now I wonder whether is it because a couple of other people we knew that they were freaked out by this book and played a trick on them. I don't know. I can't say. I wasn't there to say either way. But I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that going down. When kids get Ouija boards and play with them, I have to stick by what I said earlier and say that if you're invoking or trying to make contact with a spirit energy to come forward, even if you don't know what you're doing, you're a kid, you don't always control, or you very rarely, if at all, control what energies you make contact with. The amount of times I've done a spirit box session and wanted to contact something, but a completely different conversation comes out, I couldn't even begin to count it. And it's the same thing with a Ouija board. You can do a Ouija board and think, I want to contact the spirit of this guy who used to be a soldier and fought in the war, but an entirely different set of stuff comes through. So somebody who doesn't understand them and doesn't have intent is more likelihood of something coming through that they have no control over whatsoever. And whether that's a negative energy, whether that's a positive energy. And if they don't show any kind of respect, is that positive or negative energy then in that environment? Is it then left there? The chances are very possibly that thing that they called through, that energy that they've sort of brought into being or made come across to where they are, it's very likely.
Wow. Is it possible if you burn a Ouija board, it doesn't burn?
I can't see that. Unless it's made out of like stone or something, if you got a Ouija board and it's made out of wood and you try and set a fire to it and it doesn't set a fire, there'll be other things at play as to why, like a coating on it, it doesn't want to burn. But if you burn something and it rematerializes and it's there the day after completely unburnt, in my experience, and I can only speak from my experience here and my understanding, and that's all I can ever talk about, and that's what everything I've said tonight has been about before people start, making comments, is if you burn it, it's burnt and it's gone. You've burnt a piece of wood, it may as well just be a log that you put on the fire, it's gone.
True.
What the energy that you might have caused by using the spirit board, or Ouija board as people call it, I like to call them spirit boards, Ouija boards, the energy can still be around after you've burnt it though.
Right.
True.
What about what are these dumb kids that go out there and they're trying to summon the devil? I think they're playing with the fire.
You mean Satanists and stuff like that?
No, not a Satanist. Just like these dumb kids. They go out there and they find a abandoned building and they go out there and they try to summon the devil.
I think what happens is their intent is to do something negative, and their own psychology is charged with expectation and thinking the devil is associated with being evil. So because of that, it's like, if anything comes through, it's going to be really, really terrifying. So there's your energy. Before they've even started, there's your energy, there's your intent.
They've already got it in their head what they're going to do.
Yeah. So therefore, as a result of that, the energy in that area is going to be charged with negativity, regardless of what they do. So if you're focusing on it, the devil, I don't believe in the devil.
Me either.
I don't believe in the devil. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in any capricious deity. I respect other people's wishes to believe in that.
Right.
in every
Absolutely.
sense. I have no problem with that. I myself don't. I'm more a universalist. I believe in the power of the universe. I believe in the power of energy. I believe in the power of free will and goodness and positivity. And I think that if you focus that in the way that you conduct your spirit box sessions, your Ouija board sessions, you don't need to be scared whether it's a Ouija board or a spirit box or a sausage. It shouldn't matter.
So I know we're going back to the dowsing rods. I know you said you used them. What's your take on them? You think they're pretty cool? Like,
well, I mean, they're known for they pick up energy sources. They're really effective at doing that. It's water courses, underground water courses, mineral
KY
deposits.
Jelly, KY Adventures. Sorry, let me make sure.
I think they're I think they're they're really good tools for divination, as well as getting yes/no responses. Because whether you're looking at it as the same form as telemetry, where physical objects give off an energy that can be read, which is the same as picking up the object of somebody who's died and being able to read their memories from it by holding it in your hand, say like a watch, and holding a watch and picking up, oh, this, I get the energy of such and such a guy. It's not because he lives inside that watch now. It's because his energy has been imprinted upon that
I didn't
object.
mean to say that though. It just came
No,
out.
no, I know. But so I think dowsing rods, yeah, because the other principle works the other way around. It works the other way around. Like they can draw energy as much as they can store energy, and because of that, they can be used for that. Yeah. I know. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Oh my god!
Oh my god, Eli! You're on.
I was trying to. I was trying to ignore that in the side chat.
How do you ignore that, David's right there. I have a pendulum. I have a very old pendulum that was in my family, and I keep it in like a satin bag. But I have one.
Yeah.
I've never really used it, or even tried to use it, but it's been in my family for a long time. I don't know where it came from, but my mother gave it to me one day. She goes, "Here, do you want this?" I'm like, "Oh, it's cool." Then I researched it and I found it's copper, and it's very unique. So I just keep it safe. And Eli's still having issues over there.
I know, yeah. It's like absolutely. It's like you're dealing with vibrational frequencies of matter. We're big out of matter, and I don't see why they can't. If they can move objects, if they can interact, then a couple of well-balanced pieces of metal held parallel to one another isn't a great deal to ask of them to move by using either vibrating certain resonant frequencies or interacting with the energy in that environment. I don't see that as being a push, quite frankly. Although I have seen in most cases when you're dealing with a spirit or what you perceive to be a spirit, when it comes to moving things in the environment, it takes a lot of energy for them to even move a little piece of paper, is the truth of it. The actual physical interaction is I can see him grinning at the top left of the screen, it takes a lot of energy to move anything of any substance. I think the biggest part of their energy to be able to do things like that doesn't come from them themselves. It comes from the person that's trying to bring it about. Oh, that's there, It's the intention and focus of the person, like, move that for me, please. So they sort of play a part in it as well. So unbelievable.
How about drones? Do you use drones to check out the property?
Yeah. I do. Yeah, I do use a drone.
I want a drone. I just want a drone to have a drone. I don't want to check out shit. I just want a drone. My grandson has a drone. I said, "Let me fly it." He goes, "No, you'll break it." I'm like, "That's messed up." He's like 6 and he has a drone. What kind of drone?
I've absolutely tried to be so focused and professional on this interview so far, Eli, and then you totally destroy it with your
I
KY
didn't
jelly
mean
thing.
to, because everybody used to call him that. And I'm just like, oh my god, what is going on with my mind today?
Totally stayed focused.
Dave, I told you we'd go out with a bang.
Yeah, you knew it. You absolutely knew it. I do have a drone. Yeah, I use a DJI Phantom 3 4K with a camera on a gimbal to check out properties. So yeah, yeah. When I can, yeah, I do use a drone.
They're expensive, aren't they? The drones.
Yeah, they're even more expensive when you bounce them off the floor because you've not put the props on correctly.
I've seen some crash to the ground. I'm like, oh, that was probably pricey.
Yeah, see, it makes your wallet. You feel it in your wallet. Yeah, you do feel it. It stings.
So, I know you were talking about the thermal imaging. You're taking something apart in there or something, or I.
No, it's a totally different system than a camera because it doesn't use light. It measures, it picks up on. It's a sensor that picks up on thermobaric energy. So you're dealing with an entirely different thing. It isn't it's a focusing lens, more than anything else, and a different kind of sensor. So it's not the same thing.
Oh, sorry, man.
It's all right. We've done an hour and 3/4 staying sensible, so that's pretty good. I just buy the thermal. I buy thermal. I use I've got some HTI and FLIR, and I also use Hikvision 35 MUs. So I do use thermal, not that much because I've never really caught anything on it apart from drafts and entryways where that kind of thing. But
have you ever been chased out by cops?
Yes. Oh yes. A lot actually. But there's conversely, we've also lots of times, it's not even funny really, we've also conversely been approached by police that when they found out what we're doing have then stayed there chatting to us, asking us what the equipment does for like 3/4 of an hour, and sat there having a drink of coffee out of the flask with us, chilling out. There was one location where we hit it that often. We've done that many investigations at this particular place. It's called Stocksbridge. There's a bypass there, and it's allegedly there's a monk there. It's famous in the UK. It's known as the haunted bypass. And we've done a lot of investigations over there for like 18 months, 2 years. We're there all the time, and we'd turn up and there'd be 1 or 2 people there to meet us and chat, go, hey, you're back, They got used to seeing the car headlights turn up and the car turn up. And they'd speak to us and hang out with us and all that. We turned up one particular night and we pulled up onto the bridge which goes over this haunted bypass. And there's like about 20 cars. Like there was like a illegal rave going on or something. And we were freaked out at first. It's like, what are all these people doing here? This is weird. But they were all there for us. We turned up. It was so bizarre, man. We turned up, and as soon as we got out of the car, they started playing the theme tune to Ghostbusters. We pulled up. They got the Ghostbusters theme going. They're all like cheering, and the police turned up for that because they were causing the disturbance and all the flashing lights. So the police turned up in riot vans. This is the truth. The police turned up in riot vans, and we're like, oh man, we're getting arrested for this. This is unbelievable. Because, of course, with all the lights flashing, it's distracting the drivers on the motorway underneath the bridge, And they were the people who'd reported it. There's something going on. There's flashing lights. And they turned up and said, what are you doing here? We said, we're paranormal investigators. And they joined in then. They didn't go for like 2 hours. They were hanging out with us. Just absolutely bizarro world. So, yeah, we've been chased away by the police. We've been, joined in having a laugh with the police. It's been a bumpy ride where the police are concerned. It's a bit of a weird one. We're chased away by the police is more when there's different laws regarding entry over it. If you're on a property, nobody's been done for trespass for over 100 years in the UK. And if you're on a property you shouldn't be on, you get kicked off. That's pretty much it. If you force entry into that place to do it, then you're breaking and entering, which is a different thing again, and you can get arrested for it because you are breaking and entering. If that property's already open and you can gain access that way, then you've got unlawful access, but you don't get charged for trespassing. So we've been told, get off, you need to leave, get away from here, that kind of thing. But we haven't been chased with blue flashing lights and an O.J. Simpson kind of thing. Nothing like that, no.
Cool. Well, guys, we're coming to 8 minutes, and we're going to be closing down.
Okay.
One question: what can you tell the new investigators that are investigating right now? Any suggestions?
Yeah, my suggestions would be stay true to what you're trying to find. Stay true to your principles about what you're trying to do when you're investigating. It would be question everything. Every single thing, question it. And then when you think you've got the answer for it, question it again. It would also be pay attention to those that have gone before. Listen to the people that have got experience, that have done more investigations than you. But whilst doing so, also bear in mind that your experience is just as valid. And the last thing would be, you need to treat your mind like a parachute because it works best when it's open. So keep an open mind, keep focused, and stay true to what you're trying to achieve.
There you go. The man says it all. That's pretty cool.
Gotta go, Dave, the man, the myth, the legend.
Right? Oh, he's gonna write a book next.
I'm actually halfway. I am writing a book.
Oh, shit, you talk about
I am.
we
Yeah,
got another hour if you want.
Seriously, I am writing a book. Yeah.
Oh,
You're gonna go put it on Amazon?
That is so weird that you've mentioned that.
I know. I found that out. That's why I asked that question.
You knew that, did you? Did somebody tell you?
Eli.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
I do my shit. I had to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. Another hour. Come on.
Not many people know that, so you've got inside information. In fact, there's people in the side chat who talk on a regular basis who don't even know that. I am writing a book.
Be careful, Dave. He's the sneaky one.
I've got to be honest. That took me by surprise. I did not expect him to know that.
We do a lot of research. Like I'll call him up and be like, "Did you know this?" He'll be like, "Oh hell no!" I'm gonna ask him in the interview.
So I'm gonna be inboxing him later. Where did you get this information from?
So
you like this
Okay, it's been cool. Thanks for having me up. I really appreciate that. It's been great speaking
no problem,
to you.
man. Thanks for coming up.
Thanks for coming, Dave. You're awesome. Thank you.
And what are you going to be doing next?
As lockdown's looking like it, hopefully it's going to come to an end. There are some residential investigations that I need to do. I'm going to be everybody knows that I'm going to be looking at finishing my book now that you've spilled the beans on it. So I'm going to be doing that.
Danny, Eli, you.
It's actually it shocked me a little bit that he knew that. I didn't expect that at all. I'm going to be carrying on with messing about on the channel and chatting and interacting with people because I value everybody. They're all a good bunch of people. I like to hear people's experiences and what they think about the paranormal. I'm by no means an expert, but I'm experienced. So I think it counts for something, and that's sort of the reason I'm writing a book. Very probably. I'm hoping to get back out there and get doing it again. And because there's an audience and people are showing an interest, I'm hoping to be able to actually live stream some real time invests as well. As long as the clients who live at the properties are okay with that. And I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And I'm going to keep watching you, Eli. You know what I mean? Because I like good stuff.
Thanks, man. Always. I try.
He's sneaky, Dave. Watch out for him.
He took me by surprise with that one. I was prepared for everything tonight.
He blames me for the sneakiness. No. Sneaky Eli Pizza Man over there.
Found out by somebody. I can say his name.
Well played, sir. Well played.
So checkmate.
I know, right?
Well, thanks for that. I appreciate it anyway. Thank you. And thanks to everybody in chat for listening. I appreciate that too.
No problem. And guys, everybody, thank you for coming and thank you for being a part of our journey and for letting us be a part of yours. Like I said, be safe. God bless you and have a good night. And thank you for coming.
Bye, everybody.